Okay, let's get started then. We've got a little different way of handling this. We're first going to start off with a roll call of the members present. As you can see, John Fink, chairman, is not with us. So my name is John DeLeo, vice chair, so I'll be chairing this meeting. And I'm going to go down through the list of members. When you hear your name, just signify here or present. Roger Lassard.
Here.
Rick Lyles.
Here.
Dave Burks.
Here.
Nelson Beal.
Here.
Mark Rich.
Here.
Okay, now with John Fink's absence, Nelson, you'll be a voting member tonight.
Okay.
Okay. And as we go down through it, when we make a motion and vote on the items that we have before us, the directions say for me to go through the roll call again. So first of all, call to order the January 3rd City of Ellsworth Planning Board meeting. The first order of business would be the adoption of minutes from the May 6, 2020 meeting. Does anybody have any comments on those?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes for last month.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll go down through the call. Say yes or no to accept. Roger Lassard,
Yes.
Rick Lyles,
Yes.
Dave Burks,
Yes.
Nelson Heel,
Yes.
and I'd be a yes. Next order of business is final plan review for major use site development plan entitled Rival Road Solar, Ellsworth Solar East Site for Industrial Road, Ellsworth Solar LLC, subsidiary of Sunrays Development LLC. The proposal is to construct a 3.1 acre solar energy facility, install 5,780 voltaelectric panels, and build a 540 linear foot gravel access road on a 28.92 acre parcel located at 69 Rival Road, currently owned by Bridge Twin LLC, tax map 50, lot 39, located in the urban and limited residential shoreland zone. Is there someone here representing Sunrays Development?
Yes, this is Pat Jackson, a manager of Sunrays, and with me tonight is Evan Baker from Stantec, who's our engineering firm.
Pat, do you want to make any opening remarks? I mean, we've gone through the preliminary. Is there anything that you'd like to bring up before I open up the questions to the members?
Nothing specific. Thank you guys for your time and your questions, but happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay, are there any questions? This may be a little hard. I'm looking at the meeting on a tablet, so I have to scroll back and forth. If you raise your hand, it might take me a while for you to see that you want to ask a question, or I guess you could hit that little raise hand on the bottom of the screen. But I mean, does anybody have any questions as to the applicant?
Yeah, this is Rick. Just one
Go ahead,
quick, and it's really a clarification more than anything. The TRT review mentioned that the applicant's legal team, city attorney and all that, about the agreement for the decommissioning down the line. And I just want to make sure that the planning board can approve this contingent on that actually being resolved, because it's not resolved as of this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, actually, I was going to have the same concern about it. Perhaps this is a question, Jana. I mean, we've seen, one copy of it, but it has been, according to the TRT, it has been referred back to the city attorneys and the applicant's legal team. So at this point, we don't have the final version of that decommissioning plan. And I mean, I consider that to be as important a document. We went through a lot to get that into the ordinance, and I would kind of compare that to reviewing a project that you needed a stormwater management plan. And, if that wasn't done, we wouldn't be approving a plan. So I guess I'll ask Jana, the fact that we don't have the final copy of that, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, so our city's attorney came back with some comments on what was there, obviously in the interest of the city, in reviewing both the decommissioning plan as well as the performance bond, if you will, the financial assurance. That's sort of, I'll ask Pat if he was able to get those comments over to their bond and legal people to review that. But it's pretty standard practice for something like that. It was submitted. It's not like they're not submitting something. When there's a legal review, even if it was an easement or some other sort of legal documentation, it is pretty standard for something like that to be concluded outside of the planning board, as long as there's a condition to approval that it gets done in a matter that both the city's attorney and the applicant's attorney agree to. That's obviously in the best interest of the city, and that we wouldn't offer any official approval for their application or any permits until that agreement is solidified and until the funds are actually dispersed to the city into an account. So I feel comfortable knowing that it's fairly standard practice when something like that has to go to legal review and go back and forth, for that to be a condition to the final approval of the plan.
How many other members have, I still have some comments, but I'd like to hear from other members.
Jana, I suspect the answer to this would be similar to that answer you just gave, but the second bullet in point 2 from the TRT regarding the fire department and the EOP, the TRT is dated the 21st. I'm looking at this email from Mike on the 27th. So do we actually have that now? Is point 2 taken care of?
Yes, it is, for both the east and the west sites.
Okay, thank you.
For what it's worth, I'm okay with the explanation that Jana gave and the contingency and all that. I would request, because this is the first time we've actually done this, I would request that at some point we see a copy of that. I mean, just for informational purposes. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on you guys or anything. I just, we've never seen it before, so it'd be nice to see one.
Absolutely. Once we get that solidified, we will send it to the board just as a model, maybe going forward.
Exactly.
Yep.
Any other comments from the board on that issue? I mean, I'm just not comfortable from my point of view. I mean, I certainly don't want to hang this up, but without, and probably the changes that are going to be made are just legalese, but we spent a lot of time to get this decommissioning plan into the ordinance, and I'm just fearful that I hope it would not change to the point that it's a detriment to the taxpayer.
No, and I can pull up the email right now to sort of give you an idea of some of the comments that were provided by the city's attorney. But one of them is one of the concerns that the board had last time, which was the value at 20 years. Our attorney is advising that that it should extend for the life of the lease, which is for the 35 years. So that obviously is agreeing with what the board's concerns were during the preliminary plan meeting. There's some clarification about just terminology of wording within the contract itself or in the bond itself. And then some more specifics about like the permit, the date, to be able to clarify that if someone is looking at this document, they know down the road what the actual time frame is, so that it's 35 years down the road from now, someone could pick it up and see the date of the permit and things like that. So it's a lot of clarification. And again, I think the big one is most likely the 20-year versus the 35-year piece of it. Pat, like I said, we sent this to you a couple weeks ago now. I don't know if you have any updates, if you've passed this on, if you want to provide any information to the board, now is the time.
Yeah, thanks, Jana. Thanks for bringing it back up. I'll recirculate it to my team, as a colleague of mine handles all the insurance and bonding for us. Chairman, just to give a bit of a background on this, it's not uncommon for a specific town or city to request a certain detail added. Basically, that bond form comes from a large insurance company, and it's just like a template that they use that in most cases towns or cities are fine with, but in certain cases a little bit more detail or a certain mechanic change can be added, and we actually just did that today with another city. It was a condition of the approval, condition for pulling a building permit. So it's not something that we don't basically resolve. We have to get it resolved, but it usually takes some education for the city council, working with our bonding agency, and it always gets resolved. It's never something that is a loose end. So I can assure you that we'll get it there, and would appreciate if it could be a condition of the local permit, knowing that we can pull the building permit until we get that condition resolved.
And Pat, do you have any idea how much longer it'd take to get to the final agreement with the decommissioning plan? Any idea?
I would imagine it'd be 2 to 3 weeks, maybe. It's hard to know what town council availability is, and on the bonding side, if there's any, vacations or whatever it may be. It's usually just really getting people's attention, and usually a few back and forth, and sometimes that's quick, and sometimes it takes a couple months.
Got one question, Pat. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Roger.
Was that
Sorry.
somebody?
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Roger.
Oh, okay. Pat, are you? I didn't get a chance to see if you, and for some reason I missed it. Are you leasing the land, or are you going to buy it outright? Both sites.
Yeah, we're purchasing both properties from
Okay.
Bridgetland.
So you would be a responsible landowner also.
Correct.
Okay.
Jana, Pat mentioned, is this a document that's got to go, this doesn't have to go to the council for approval, does it?
It does not.
Go ahead, David.
My question probably for Jenna is, if we approve this under the condition that this requirement is met, how is that monitored and they get the green light to go?
Yep. So basically it is an agreement that is resolved by the city's attorney. And he is the one that makes sure that this is obviously in the best interest of the city. It meets the ordinance. And then once that agreement is made, there has to be, per our ordinance, the performance bond or whatever the financial assurance is in this case, I believe it is a bond. They would have to disperse that to the city, and it would have to be within our financial records. And then we get the green light to be able to have the code enforcement office be able to provide a permit.
Thank you.
I guess I'll throw out another question to Pat. If you say, that, I mean, it might take another 2 or 3 weeks to come to a resolution of the final document. Obviously, we would have a planning board meeting in a month. If we put this off till next month so the board members could see that document, does that put you in a crunch for construction? Or, you know, if we put the decision off until next month so the board would have a chance to read the decommissioning plan?
I guess it does not.
I mean, Jenna, is that something, I mean, I'd be more comfortable doing it that way. And obviously it's up, you know, it's up to the rest. I'm just one board member. Perhaps the other members could chime in, or what you think about it, Jenna.
I look at it as a legal document, just like a deed or an easement that needs to be provided as part of the ordinance. But let's say somebody needed to provide a deed for a condition, we wouldn't ask that deed come back for review. We would, you know, we would say that the attorneys are the experts in that field, and that we would allow them to be able to ensure that they're having the best interest of the city, as well as abiding by whatever is in the ordinance. So I feel personally comfortable with allowing that to happen outside of the realm of the planning board. But obviously, you know, you are the planning board, and so you would have to also feel that you have that level of comfort as well. And oops, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm playing
Yes.
with this here. I would, Dwight, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add on to that in terms of going out, you know.
Yeah, there's 2 ways we could actually look at this. We could approve it and then sign the MyLars when they meet the conditions, Mr. Chairman. Or the code office could hold a building permit until we have all the required documents. So we could do either one.
Yeah, so as Dwight suggests, if you did it where the MyLars are signed, you could have the actual document in front of you during the time that you're signing the MyLar, so you're able to review it. Does that make sense? Right, Dwight? Like they would be able to review it there. If you're comfortable with it, then you can sign the MyLar. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But how is Mylar signing proceeding in these days?
Well,
We're not gonna do it tonight, right?
without the MyLars being signed, that they can't move forward with a document. They'd be in violation of our land use ordinance.
Yeah, so the way that we're running that now in the time of COVID-19 is that, and we asked our for guidance on this from the city's attorney as well, is you can sign the MyLar in the parking lot of City Hall if you, you know, we can bring the MyLars outside and put them on the hood of a car or set up a table or whatever. But they are able to be signed outside as long as there's some sort of a motion that's made during the meeting that gives approval based, you know, and in this case, if you're saying we approve it with the condition, then you would just need to know that that condition is met before you can sign it in the parking lot.
I mean, I kind of like that idea of waiting really for, if we vote to approve it tonight with the condition that upon having signed the MyLars, we'll get a chance to read the document. If we don't agree with it, we don't sign the MyLar. I mean, is kind of the best of both worlds. It doesn't hold up pat, you know, much more. I mean, the Mylar is going to have to come back to us at the next meeting anyway. I mean, this way,
That's
if we voted to approve it tonight, we would still get the opportunity to read that document. If we didn't like it, we don't sign the Mylar and we continue on. But if we do like it, the Mylar gets signed and they can proceed with the project.
And
Right.
that's in essence without delay then. I mean, there's no delay there really at all. Is that correct?
That's right. So what I was going to say is that in the case that you read it and you don't like it, then it can go back to the city's attorney as well as to the applicant's attorney to make any adjustments that need to be necessary. So again, it can still move on without having another planning board meeting, but you would still be able to review the document.
Plus we get to meet with you in a parking lot.
She'll probably send Dwight.
We get to meet with Dwight in the parking lot. That's almost as good.
Did you get
So
your
what is
haircut
the
yet, Dwight?
what's this I guess the presumed schedule for the signing? When would this big parking lot signing event happen? What are we thinking?
So the typical process after the planning board meeting is that we put together the minutes and action letters that need to be signed by the chair that are in regard to any approvals. And then we ask for the applicant to provide the Mylars and the paper copies so that they can get signed. In this case, there would probably be like 3 weeks that there would need to be some negotiation between the legal team outside of the planning board. So I assume like in 3 weeks time-ish that we would be able to have all the documents ready, which sort of correlates with the time that you might need to be coming to pick up your packets for the next planning board meeting anyway, so that we could try to facilitate a parking lot exchange at that time.
Okay.
Hey, Pat, how do you feel about that, this course of events taking place? You there, Pat? I was just,
Sorry, I was a little scraggly right there. Do you mind repeating the question, Chairman?
I was just wondering, you know, if we proceed under this plan, I mean, how do you feel in that regards?
Can you educate me on what the Mylar is? And signing the Mylar?
Yeah, so Pat, the typical process with our planning board is that if you are given approval or even approval with any conditions, typically at the next planning board meeting, you would bring in your Mylars or send us your Mylars and paper copies to be signed by the board. That way we have a record that it was approved or approved with conditions or waivers. And so in this case, you know, it's nothing out of the typical. You would send in your Mylars and your paper copies with the conditions listed in the signature block. The only difference here is that to meet your condition, we would need to have all of the documentation that shows that you meet those conditions. And then the board would review them. And then if they are satisfied, they sign the Mylar and the paper copy. If they're not, then we would have to just go back to negotiations.
So under that, thanks, Jana. Under that, would it, from a process standpoint, mean that we have until next meeting to work out any issues the city attorney has? And ideally, it's resolved by that next meeting so that they're in a state to be signed. Is that an accurate understanding?
That's correct. So we would say that when you sign your Mylars and your paper copies or send them to us, that we also would have a finalized agreement ready to go at that time as well.
Okay. And in the event that it's not finalized, the decom bond's not finalized with city council before the next meeting, what would happen? Would you just get postponed until the following meeting?
That's right. I mean, in this case, like the board isn't meeting in a at this point, they're not meeting in a room. So the signing of Mylars is happening sort of outside of a planning board meeting. July and August, they may be meeting. So it would be good to have those for the actual date of the next planning board meeting.
Okay. But in the event we can't wrap it up because of availability or a couple back and forths too many, nothing negative would happen if we close it tonight.
Nope, you would still have that approval with a condition. So you just wouldn't have final approval until the conditions have been met.
Understood. Okay. I'm comfortable with that. I mean, Evan, am I overlooking anything? Do you think that's a good resolution? Evan, I think you were
Sorry.
muted.
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. Thanks for asking.
And why don't we proceed with that plan? Are there any more comments or questions from board members? We still have to go to a public comment period. Does board members have any more comments or questions?
All good.
Hey, John, this is Jana, sorry. I just wanted to give you one update. Since we put together the technical review team reports, the applicants actually provided us with their approvals from both the DEP and the Maine DOT for their permits. So one of the conditions that we had listed as a recommendation for approval was that they provide those documents to us. They have, so I just wanted to make the board aware of that.
Okay, so under the recommended conditions for planning board approval, that first button no longer applies?
That's correct.
Okay.
You got that in a separate email, right? Or something?
Sorry.
We saw that was distributed to us,
Oh, okay, great.
I think, right?
It should have been. I just want to make sure that you're aware.
Okay, I guess I'll have to formally open this up as a public hearing, which we have to do. I mean, Dwight or Nate, are there any comments coming into you to relay to the board or?
No, John, I haven't received anything.
Nothing through the webinar either.
And I don't have anything on my end, but we might want to give it like 2 minutes just because there is a little bit of a delay sometimes.
Okay, well, I'll keep it open. What I'll do is I'll go through, go down through the standards and criteria for the final plan meeting. And basically, as Jenna said, the state and federal permits have been applied for and apparently received. This plan does conform with the comp plan. There's no shoreline standards. Landscaping really doesn't much apply other than that they're gonna grass the area. There's no traffic impacts, no bike pedestrian circulation. The only parking that's gonna be provided for is for service vehicles or for fire department to get in there. There's no parking lot per se. Stormwater management plan does not apply. There's not going to be any park or open space. There's no drinking water being proposed. There's no sewer disposal being proposed. Utilities, obviously there's utilities. Construction debris, I mean, they'll dispose of that. Street name, I believe they've applied or will apply for a street number. There's not going to be any advertising or no special features. Exterior lighting is just on the buildings that are doing with censored lights. The fire department, I believe, is happy with emergency vehicle access and fire suppression. If you just want to chime in on that, Mike Kangi, just to double check.
Yes, we're all set. Thank you.
Okay. Waste disposal, I mean, there's no waste disposal per se. And the big one is the operation and maintenance plan, the emergency operations plan, and the decommissioning plan are all finalized or being worked on. So I'll close the public hearing. Nobody has chimed in on that, Jana or Dwight, as you know.
No, we don't have anything on my end.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. What would the board like to do?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Roger, I think.
yes, it is.
Oh,
Can you hear me
okay.
okay? I would like to make a motion to, for the final plan review to accept it for the on Mariahville Road, solar east side, and near the industrial road map. And the development is, let me take off my glasses so I can read this. The proposal is to construct a 3.1 area solar energy facility installed with 5,780 photo voltage panels and built on a 540 linear feet gravel access road on a 29.92 acre parcel. And will be at 69 Mariahville Road. And under the condition that we, in order to, that we may be able to see the decommission plan before we sign the Mylars. I think that's about it.
Does that cover all the bases, Jana?
Second that, by the way.
Yeah, unless Mike Hangy, would you want a condition to also be added that the final draft of the full emergency operation plan prior to the installation and energization of the energy storage system modules be submitted to the Ellsworth Fire Department? Do you want that to be a condition, or are you satisfied with the fact that there's a note on the plan to that regard?
We're good that it has a note on the plan.
Okay, I just wanted to check with you.
Okay, and I believe Rick seconded that, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Rick, did you second it?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. Sorry.
Okay, I'll go down through the roll call. Roger Lassard,
Yes.
Rick Lyles,
Yes.
Dave Birch,
Yes.
Nelson Gill,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the motion is passed. Moving on to item number 5, which is kind of a repeat of 4, the final plan review for major solar use development plan entitled Mariahville Road Solar, Ellsworth Solar West Site for Mariahville Road, Ellsworth Solar LLC, subsidiary of Sunrays Development LLC. The proposal is to construct a 7.53 acre solar energy facility, install 5,120 photovoltaic panels, and build a 677 linear foot gravel access road, an 11.6 acre parcel located at 122 Mariahville Road, currently owned by Bridge Twin LLC, tax map 59, lot 14-1-2, located in the urban zone. I suspect that Pat doesn't need to make any more comments unless you He's shaking his head no. Does any of the board members have any questions on this?
I'm
Similar-
comparing the two TRTs. There's an extra bullet on this one that states applicant should provide more explanation on landscaping buffering of west property line of the subject property, as appears that the submittal shows landscaping buffering of the north, south, and east lines only. And I saw we did, I think, in an email with some photographs. Is this what those photographs were referring to?
I'll let Eben talk, but yes, it is. Eben, if you want to just kind of give a little bit of clarity behind that.
Certainly, thanks, Jana. So I went through the project records and was able to find a photo location along the western property edge of the west site, showing the existing forested vegetation there. So that was the photo that we submitted after we got the TRT comments.
I did have one question kind of along that same lines, Eben. On the fencing, on the buffering, I mean, you referenced section 813.16 and 813.17. I guess is as much of a question to staff. But on 813.17, if I read it correctly, the fencing is supposed to be solid. Perhaps Dwight or Janet could educate me on that. I mean, is this fence supposed to be solid, or I believe it was a chain link fence that you were going to put up?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dwight. If there's no existing vegetation, then the fence has to be opaque. And that's what they addressed on the east side of the road. Along main propane and along the road where there's no vegetation, they're gonna put I believe it's the plastic slats in between the fence to make it opaque. I believe our standard only requires 10 feet of buffering. And I think if the way Evan has presented it, I think they're gonna have that on the west side. The reason the east side was more complicated is that the bridge twin, they put that big gravel pad out there, and that took all the vegetation away on those two sides.
Okay, but I mean, for security, there's going to be a chain link fence going around the whole property. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to buffer 5,000 solar panels. So just happy. Thank you, Dwight. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I just want to follow up on this point. So the email from Eben was addressed to Jana and Dwight. So we see the photos, but the obvious question is, are you guys satisfied with what we're seeing now? So does this address whatever concerns you had that caused that bullet point to be written in the first place?
My answer is yes. So the standard, there's several standards. The one from the road, which is the 1317 that DeLeo just brought up. The applicant has the ability to use plantings, fences, /wall, berms, or combination thereof. So in this case, for the west site that we're looking at right now, they are using a 30-foot vegetated buffer from the road. On the side areas, it's a 10-foot buffer. We are satisfied. I just wanted to see what the west side looked like because we only had the ability to see what the east side looked like. We know there's 10 feet there, but we wanted to see what it looked like in terms of vegetation. So I'm fine with it. Just being able to understand what the forested vegetation is like in that area. Dwight, do you have any comments on that?
I concur with Jana. I'm satisfied with what they've done. We did have one property owner reach out, and if you remember, the written application stated that they were going to have an opaque fence. And then when we actually got the final plans, they didn't have it on there. So that's why we asked them to match what the original application was, which they've done. So I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll open up public hearing, allow time for public to chime in, but I'll go down through, in the meantime, I'll go down through the standards and criteria. It's basically just a repeat of what we just did, but the state and federal permits have been applied for, received, applies with the comp plan, shoreline zone does not apply, landscaping does not apply. There's no biker, pedestrian circulation, parking is limited to service vehicles and emergency vehicles. Stormwater management plan does not apply. There's no parks or open space, natural or historical features. There's no drinking water being proposed, no sewage disposal being proposed. Utilities are underground. Construction debris will be taken care of. Street number will be applied for. There's no special features. Exterior lighting is just on the buildings being proposed, on the sensor, emergency vehicle access, fire suppression. The fire department is happy with those. No waste disposal to worry about. And then we'll have the same issue going forward with the decommissioning plan. At this point, Jana, Dwight, do you have any members of the public chiming in? Jana shaking her head no. Dwight? Anything coming to you, Dwight?
You're
No.
on.
You still there, Dwight?
I'm here.
Okay. I mean, no public comments coming to you?
No.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. What would the board like to do?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Roger.
okay, I'd like to accept the approval for the final plan of major use site development entitled Mariahville Road, Ellsworth Solar, well, the west side. And it's for Mariahville Road, Ellsworth Solar. And the proposal is to construct a 7.53 acre solar energy facility installed on 5,120 photovoltaic panels, and built on 600, and also build a 677 linear foot gravel access road on an 11.6 area parcel located at 122 Mariahville Road, and is currently owned by Bridge Twin LLC, tax map 59, lot 14-1-2, and it's located in the urban zone. And with the condition that before we sign the Maillards, that we see a decommissioning plan for this project.
Is there a second?
Second that, this Rick.
Is that Rick? Okay, thank you, Rick. Any other comments or questions from the board? In that case, I will call for a vote. Roger Lassard,
Yes.
Rick Lyles,
Yes,
Dave Burks,
Yes,
Nelson Gill,
Yes.
and I vote yes also. So, Mr. Jackson, both of your plans have been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board and Jana. We'll immediately work on the decom bond. But thanks for everything.
Thank you very much. Clear that pile away. Now we'll go to item number 6, preliminary plan review for a major use site development plan entitled Ellsworth RV for Bernie and Selena Gordon. The proposal is to construct 4 self-storage unit buildings, a total of 9,600 square feet on a 3.09 acre property located at 314 Bucksport Road, tax map 25, lot 2, located in the urban zone. Is there someone here representing the applicant?
Salisbury will be representing this.
Okay, and I understand also that Sarah, this is your project that you'll be helping us out on. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. My name is Sarah Del Ghizo. I'm with the Mussing Group, and yep, I reviewed this project as well as the next 2 that we'll be looking at.
Okay, so Steve, the floor is all yours.
Okay, we propose to construct a total of 4 storage buildings to be used for recreational vehicles or perhaps boats. 2 of which have already been permitted through code office, but we do have a comprehensive plan showing all 4 buildings in front of you. We've gone through a few changes with the TRT committee, and there's a couple of pending items still that we owe you that we're working on. I did get the letter of financing today, so that's been taken care of. We should be able to clean this up for next meeting with no problems.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Go ahead, Rick.
In the preliminary plan application materials, it said that there's no outdoor lighting. Is that correct? Really? You're
That
gonna
is
have 4
correct.
buildings out there with no lights?
Those buildings will not be lit.
Okay. So be it then. In the subsurface wastewater disposal system application, page 15 talks about new shop and office and 2 employees with a bathroom and all that. I assume that's from some earlier proposal that has gone by the way. Is that right?
No, they have constructed an office attached to the.
Oh, they've already done it. They've already done it?
There's a little office bump out on this.
And that's already been
garage.
done?
That's already
That's
been
all-
done. I believe the septic's been installed.
Okay. I understand.
They will have an office on site. It's a seasonal office.
Gotcha.
7 months a year, and they go south in the wintertime.
On let's see, it's the letter from the State of Maine Department of Inland Fishery people on page 21. It says under significant wildlife habitat, it says that the surveys are complete. Survey forms should be submitted to our agency for review well before the submission of necessary permits and so forth. Has that happened, or is that a problem? Or is that pending or done, or what?
No, it's a standard template letter. If we were in
Okay.
a bigger project that needed state approvals, we'd have to follow through with that.
And that's not the case here.
Not the case here.
Okay. I'm so trusting. Finally, for me at least, on page 29, you're talking about detention ponds and in that area. Are those to be done now, or is that in the future, or?
No, the ponds will be constructed probably at the same time the buildings are, because they're immediately behind the buildings.
Okay. There was something that was said in here someplace that I thought it was phased or something, which didn't actually make sense to me. But what you've said is fine with me. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Any other board members have comments or questions?
I wasn't quite done. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is there any kind of walkway or connection between the existing garage and office space and the 4 new structures? I showed them, there's no walkway or anything going back and forth. Is that a problem of any sort to anybody?
It's grassed over, gravelled area. There's no trees. It's all open. You can
Okay,
park the
and there's no traffic that goes back and forth?
No.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Just a couple, Steve. On page 6, on the project overview, it says that there's not going to be any, there's going to be a porta potty, but not any leach field or septic. But then on, I think it's page 15, there's a septic design. Could you just clear that, my confusion up?
When I wrote this back in early April, there was a porta potty on site, and they hadn't started yet the construction of the office space. Those plans, they pushed ahead with the garage a little sooner than I thought they were going to. So now after the construction's done, the porta potty will be gone, and they'll use the septic system for the office. Probably do away with the porta potty.
Okay. I'll bring up, and on this kind of entire parcel, there's 3 curb cuts coming into it, and it looks like you propose keeping 2 of them as into the storage facility. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, all 3 curb cuts will remain. There's a separate one that goes to the office, and there's 2 curb cuts for the storage.
I know, does this have to still be submitted to MDOT for approval, even though those curb cuts are currently there?
I had not approached this, not a change of use. It was already a storage of RVs there and an RV repair business. There's actually a residence there that got demolished, so I don't expect any change in the traffic patterns. Instead of putting the RVs outside, someone will be lucky enough to be put inside for the winter time.
Of course, my point of view is the less curb cuts, the better. I mean, could this facility operate with 1 curb cut?
Well, one of the curb cuts is a right-of-way to land in the back that's owned by Bridge Twin LLC and some others. One of them is necessary for the garage. The middle one, I don't know if they'd be willing to give that up or not.
I mean, on those driveways, on the diagram, you have that metal posts are going to be across each driveway. Will this be gated or fenced?
No.
Like the storage facility on 1A? No, okay.
No.
So it kind of sounds like these storage buildings are more, there's one big garage door to drive into it other than, single, small storage units.
That's right. Yeah, just one big door on the gable end with probably a service door on the corner of the building. A man door just to walk into, like a 6'8" door.
Okay, but so how would, if somebody is renting space in there, is this a business that's going to be open, during the day, other than someone who wants to pick up their boat is not going to be able to go there in the middle of the night to pick up their boat or RV or whatever stored in the building?
No, the storage is controlled by the business owner. It's not 24-hour access. It's just during business hours.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
The question about the following up on the water and septic and the future proposed leach field. I presume that all the RVs and travel trailers, they're stored dry in the sense that there's no black water dumping on site. That's not part of the service provided, and so there's no accommodation for that in the plan. Is that true?
That is true.
That's all I had.
And Sarah, do you have any input into the project?
No, I think you guys had some great questions. Our few concerns were really had to do with a few of those notes that needed to be added to the final plan document. But yeah, no, I think you guys covered it.
Okay, I'll open this up to the public hearing, just in case someone wants to chime in. Were there any other comments or questions from the board before I go down through the preliminary plan application?
With all due respect, can we forego the reading of the plan, that list? I mean, I love having the list. Don't get me wrong, I like the list, but we all have a copy of the list, and you know, much as I like to hear your voice, John, I don't actually need it.
Well, I
Or do we have to
suspect
do
that
that?
Jenna would like me to do that, just so we can officially say, it'll be entered into the record that we went down through that, just in case somebody does object to it in the future. Is that correct, Jenna?
John, you could also say that you agree with the document and cite the document so that you don't have to go through it. You know, any conditions or anything like that, you can enter into the motion. So you don't have to, as long as it's just acknowledged.
Okay, well, I guess that'll make Jana and Rick happy.
Sounds like it's agreeing, I'm good.
Okay, so the preliminary plan application.
John, hey, John.
Yes.
You didn't close the public hearing. I don't have anything. I just wanted to get that off out there. There's nothing on my end for public hearing.
Okay, what about you, Dwight?
No, there's nothing on mine.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and say that the Ellsworth RV preliminary plan application is complete. The spreadsheet that Harry has put together is good. So saying that, Rick, would you like now to make a motion?
Oh, boy, okay, that's the quid pro quo, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have one more comment as we do this. I would make
Okay.
the motion that the preliminary plan review for a major use site development plan entitled Ellsworth RV for Bernie and Selena Gordon be approved with respect to completeness, with details as noted in the agenda. As an aside, as opposed to reading all those details. A model that I would like to see you develop, accept.
I think we need to also add the preliminary plan review notes. Or
In the
I
motion,
assume Steve knows that the application, the preliminary plan review notes, Steve still has to provide.
I do acknowledge that.
Okay. So Rick has made the motion. Do I hear a second?
No, second.
Was that Roger?
that was Roger.
Okay. So I'll go down through the list again. All in favor, Roger Lassard,
Yes.
Rick Wiles,
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Yes.
Dave Burks,
Yes.
Nelson Gill,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that one passes. Okay. So now we're on to item number 7, preliminary plan review for revision to a previously approved major subdivision plan entitled Beachland Terraces 2A, Associated Builders Incorporated. The proposal is to divide Lot 5 tax map 15, lot 33-2, a 1.84 acre parcel into two parcels, creating lot 5A, 0.92 acres, and lot 5B, 0.92 acres, to create a total of 13 lots in the subdivision located on the Beachland Road. All of the subject property is located in the neighborhood zone. Is there someone here representing Associated Builders?
Stephen Salisbury representing Doug King and Associated Builders.
The floor is all yours, Stephen.
All right. Doug would like to divide one existing lot in the Phase 2 subdivision to make two lots, one of them fronting Beachland Road and the other one fronting Grandview Road. He has no recollection as to why they didn't divide it into two lots to start with. So we've made provisions, made some additional soils testing, and plotted those on the map for you. The staff has asked us to map any wetlands that are there on site, and I have Lee Berman doing that next week. So we'll demonstrate to the board and the city that the minimum lot size is met, because we have to take out any wetland areas out of the minimum lot calculation. I don't expect any issue with that. We measured the site distances at the city's request, and there's more than adequate site distance, and the Public Works was going to check on that just to verify my measurements. And I got a letter today from Doug's attorney reasoning why we can take the note off the plan regarding the limiting of access to Grandview Road only. Doug was the original developer. That particular condition did not go into any of the deeds in the Phase 2 subdivision. So whereas Doug's the original developer, we feel that he still retains the right to delete that note on the plan, presuming you will grant the application to split lot 5. That's the end of my comments.
Any comments or questions from the board?
You know there are.
That's got to be Rick.
That's got to be Rick. I have a question. I guess this is for Jana and Sarah as much as anything else. There's a whole bunch of extra covenants that go beyond the zoning ordinance that are involved here. I would reference page 7 and 8 of the documents, and they talk about construction of the dwellings, what kind of animals and pets are allowed. Luckily, I have no ferrets. Apparently, they're illegal, and so forth. Anyway, so there are several things that make this more stringent than the zoning ordinance. Are those things going to stand up? What's the planning view on that? That would be Jana and Sarah.
I was gonna say I can defer this to Jana probably.
Yeah, so by subdivision law, a subdivision and a developer are allowed to have covenants that go with the deed. They are not and Dwight can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but they're not enforceable by the city's code enforcement office, considering they're not within our ordinance. However, they are enforceable within whatever homeowners association homeowners association that is created as part of that subdivision. So it's basically through neighbors watching out for each other and what they're doing. It is not something that the city typically gets involved in. And Dwight, if you want to kind of pick up on that, considering you've probably had some experience with this in the code office.
Yeah, and that Jana is correct. Unfortunately, everyone thinks that our office can handle these issues, especially when it comes to livestock and things of that nature. But if it's not in our ordinance, we don't have a legal right to. It falls back on a homeowners association. And to get a covenant like that changed, you would have to get everyone basically in the subdivision to sign off on it, which is almost impossible to do. And that's why the city doesn't get involved, because we just don't have the resources to go out and try to enforce something that we don't have a statute, a state statute, or a local ordinance to support it. So we just stay out of it.
Okay, I think we just, just as a cautionary note, I think we have to be careful with additional covenants being added onto land somehow. And again, I don't necessarily have any real problems with these, but there are covenants that can be discriminatory and so forth, and those won't stand up in court, I hope. I have a question about the drainage, or not the drainage, but I think it was about the suitable areas for, I guess for septic tanks. Is that correct? Page 11, note from Mike Gramlich. And my question had to do with, he identified 2 areas within the overall, the larger parcel that were suitable for, I think, for septic tanks or drainage fields. But I believe that both of those areas are in 5A, and there's not one in 5B. Is that a problem with respect to this, or is it just buyer beware, or what? Anybody could answer that.
I was going to say, I can let Steve speak on this as well, but they're proposing that there'll be a septic easement over lot 5A that will allow for septic for 5B to be provided on 5A where there's suitable soils.
So if I were to buy 5B, I would have my drain field in 5A.
Correct.
Okay. So sounds like a good time to me. That's it. I'm good.
Any other comments or questions from the board? I actually have one for Mike Hangy. In your letter, Mike, I mean, in the past when we've done new lots, subdivisions, there's a requirement for fire protection that the house would be sprinkled. I mean, where we're making a new lot here, does that requirement still apply? I mean, there's one old lot that's been previously approved, but now we're splitting that lot in half. So we have a new lot. Does that lot have to come under the new standards where the house on one of those lots would have to be sprinkled?
No, it does not. The other thing is we do have a hydrant just up the road on the Beachland Road.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there was a hydrant there or not. That was the only question I had. I'll open a public hearing, give anybody a chance to chime in. But in the meantime, I will say that the preliminary plan application for Beachland Terrace 2 is agreeable with what has been provided and what planning office has informed Steve still needs to be completed. Jana, is there anybody from the public chimed in?
I do not have anything on my end.
What about you, Dwight?
No, nothing on my end.
Okay, sorry to wake you up, Dwight.
It's all right.
Okay, in that case, I will close the public hearing. And what would the board like to do, Rick?
I would like to move that the preliminary plan for revision of a previously approved major subdivision plan entitled Beachland Terraces 2A for associated builders that application is complete and with details as in the agenda.
Okay.
that good enough for you?
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second,
I'd say Dave Burks has seconded it.
there you go.
I'll go down through the roll call. Roger Lassard,
Yes,
Rick Lyles,
Yes.
Dave Burks,
Yes.
Nelson Gill,
Yes.
and I say yes. So that one's been approved. So now we go on to number 8, sketch plan review for revision to a previously approved major site plan and major subdivision plan entitled Denver Way Eco Homes with Jonathan Bates. The proposal is to create a cluster subdivision with 15 lots on a 6.5 acre parcel, tax map 58, lot 19-3, located at 21 Denver Way. All of the subject property is located in the urban zone. Is there someone here representing Jonathan?
Steve Salisbury again.
The floor is yours, Steve.
All right. The planning board approved 15 structures on this same property a year or two ago. So nothing has changed with the road, the leach fields, the central water supply. But instead of renting the homes, John would like an opportunity to sell those homes individually, thinking that, you know, he's going to get some long-term renters in there and they're going to fall in love with a house and want to live there forever, and give them an opportunity to buy the home instead of just running it for long-term. That would give John an exit strategy. So it's just a change in the land ownership. There's no change in the physical design, just putting some lot lines around each unit.
Going forward, Sarah, is there anything, I mean, obviously, I'm guessing we have to still go through the preliminary plan and the final plan for acceptance, even though everything is the same, where he's just changing it from all rentals to a rental buy.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yep. So this evening, and Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, we are just determining whether or not the sketch plan application is complete to move on to the preliminary plan process. And I have provided on the TRT report, there's a few advisory comments of things that should be shown on the preliminary plan as well.
Yeah, this is Jana. There's no actual determination that needs to be made tonight. The sketch plan is strictly advisory. And as Sarah said, there's when the TRT team reviewed the sketch plan, there were some advisory comments that were put forth for the applicant to take into consideration when creating their preliminary and then final plan. John, yes, it does need to go through both preliminary and final, as any subdivision that creates a new lot actually has to go through 2 meetings. If it were a subdivision amendment, well, and not to mention, this is actually a land subdivision, rather, it has already gone through subdivision for multi-units. This is a different type of subdivision where it's a land subdivision. So it would have to go through those 2 preliminary and final plan reviews.
Thank you. Steve, I've got one question. I don't recall on the previous plan that we approved, the streets, I mean, it's Denver Way coming in, but you have it labeled Telluride Drive and Aspen Drive. Were those names actually on the previous plan?
I hope so. I didn't make them up.
No, I mean, my question is, I mean, does anybody know, had that gone to Larry Gardner for approval? The reason I ask is that since we went to the 911 road naming back 20 years or so ago, we've always addressed a private road ending in way. I mean, it makes it easy for everybody to know any street ending with way is a private road. I guess Jana or Dwight, do you know if Larry has accepted those names for roads?
Yeah, John?
Yes, is it?
I have the 6/5/2019 plan in front of me. And
Okay.
That was approved by the planning board with those names. Aspen Drive and Telluride Drive are actually approved.
Would there be, to maintain consistency in street naming as we go through, can we change those two to ways?
I guess that's a Larry question that we can find out.
I mean, it doesn't affect anybody now because nobody has a house there, nobody has an address there. I guess I would ask, I don't know whether staff has to talk to Larry or Steve to maybe make that change. I think, like I say, just to maintain consistency. That I mean, I presume, Steve, that Jonathan is going to keep these as private roads.
Yes, it'll be all the road infrastructure will be maintained by homeowners association.
Okay. I mean, I would just ask Jana or Dwight, maybe somebody to talk to Larry and ask him about that.
Yeah, we can certainly send an email to Larry and ask him. Since it was already approved, I mean, we could only make the changes most likely for the preliminary and the final plans. But if it's something, let's just send Larry an email and find out what his thoughts are on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Technically, I have to open up a public hearing, so the public hearing is open. Give a chance for public to chime in. Is there any more questions or comments from the board to Steve or staff?
I have one. What a surprise. If these units are being sold separately, okay, and the whole thing started off as cluster zoning, which relaxes certain aspects of the zoning ordinance, so that you have common spaces and so forth. Now that you're going to, in essence, go to or allow private ownership, do any of those lots have any problems with, setbacks or anything like that? And the next question would be, what exactly happens to those common spaces? Is there going to be a homeowners association then that in conjunction with the current owner? Or I mean, I don't know how that's going to work exactly.
Each lot owner would be a 1/15, have a 1/15 interest in the common land. And there would definitely be a homeowners association.
Okay.
To take care of that common land. And we're actually going to set up a separate LLC to create a utility company for the water and sewer distribution.
Okay. Okay.
Maintenance. So they'll get billed by the LLC for their sewer and water, just like you were living in the city.
Okay, so if he sells off 5 of these, those would each have 1/16, and he'd retain 11/16. I mean,
that's right.
That's the way that would work.
Yeah, in essence, correct.
Okay, and that's okay with this. I mean, we don't have any problems with that, city people.
That is included on the advisory notes to have the city attorney take a look at the language to make sure that it works and is all legal and good to go for the establishment of the LLC for the public utilities and the homeowner association. Yep.
And the open space.
And the open space.
Okay. Because the open space didn't, unless you can consider open space a public utility, open space wasn't mentioned. So I would ask that would be added to the existing bullet point. Yeah.
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 I'm good.
Kind of along the same lines, Stephen. I mean, if Mr. Bates sells one lot, builds a house, and that person would pay 1/15 of the homeowner association fees. So then will Jonathan be responsible for the other 14/15, for the cover costs of road maintenance or whatever costs that the whole homeowners association has?
Yes. In a lot of associations, the developer maintains responsibility until a certain percent of the lots are sold.
Okay, thank you.
They use that as a selling. It's not a legal requirement, but they just do that to make it easier to sell. So one poor person isn't stuck taking care of the roads and stuff.
Okay.
Can I ask to clarify, can I just ask one question about that, Steve? Since it's a mix of rentals and also selling, would that be the case too if it was just occupied by a renter, or would the actual lot itself have to be sold off?
It would have to be sold. If John
Okay.
keeps it as a rental, John's gonna pay the maintenance costs for the roads. And
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Jenna, you got any input from the public?
I've got none, John.
Thank you, Dwight.
I don't have anything either.
I want to be Jana.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Board members have any other comments or questions? Hearing none, and I guess you're good to go, Stephen. We don't need to vote on this. Is there anything else, Jana? Okay, I'll take a motion for adjournment if you would so like.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Roger. Is there a second?
I'm not saying a word.
Okay,
'Cause I like you,
okay,
Dave.
then I'll second it. All in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Aye.